Hey guys, and welcome to another Form First podcast, a unique one, to say the least. You're soon going to notice that this is a primarily audio-only Form First podcast, and that happened because the other day when I was shooting this video, shot the whole thing, had no clue that my batteries were dead on my microphone, and when I went to upload everything, it was nothing but video. And so, while I would like to just scrap the entire video in itself, it pertained to our Syphylogeny workout this past week, and I felt compelled to still show you some of the videos from that podcast because it's still relevant and it's important enough for me to feel like I have to share it with you. So periodically you're going to see a video cut in and out, and I will relate to it if I'm showing you some type of demonstration, because this is a different Form First podcast than we normally do. This video I shot, I did not have my cohort Joe Militella with me. It was just myself talking about Syphylogeny's workout and then also giving you some demonstrations. So it's a mix between our form previews and the Form First podcast. So I did want to still show you some of the things that I highlighted in it. And in some instances, it may be a little bit goofy because what I'm really doing is looking at the video, trying to figure out what it is that I'm talking about, and then relaying it to you. But that's neither here nor there. You're probably just tuning in because you're a Syphys nerd like myself. And but before we get into that, I want to introduce you to our new sponsors, KS3. KS3 is a new clothing line based here in the Great Lakes state of Michigan. And what they do is provide all apparel and accessories for all wind, water, and snow sports. And let me tell you, I'm wearing one of their hats right now. It's absolutely awesome. If I had the actual video feed, you could see it, but obviously I don't. But it's great. I'm going to get some of their sweatshirts and t-shirts. Their logo looks awesome. From what I hear, the actual fit's fantastic. And they also have a very admirable mission, if you will. Not only are they trying to support their mission and passion for an active lifestyle, but they're also trying to conserve the environment. And they're donating a portion of their sales, I believe it's 10% of their sales, to two different causes. One's the Alliance for the Great Lakes, and the other is the Surfrider Foundation. So if you're going to go to their website right now, ks3lifestyle.com, check out their catalog and purchase something, you know that not only are you going to buy a great product, but you're also going to be supporting two great causes in the process. So not only are you going to look good, but you're also going to feel good too. So again, that's ks3lifestyle.com, K, the letter S, the number 3, lifestyle.com. Check them out. Again, ks3.com. They're born on passion for wind, water, and snow sports. KS3. All right, well, let's dive into this podcast. In a second, if you're watching the screen, you will see Syphylogeny pop up. And I wanted to still publish this video because it's still relevant. We just did this workout, I think, 3 days ago. And the first time we did a Syphylogeny circuit, it was actually 7 days worth of exercises. And the basic goal of Syphylogeny is to teach you harder exercises by learning the easier exercises or tasks that make up the harder ones. So for instance, if you want to learn how to do a slapjack on the far right there, you need to know how to do a lichen, an ape shoot, a monkey crawl, Curious George, jackalope, all of those. If you know how to do those, you'll know how to do slapjack. The goal was to try to teach people how to recall exercises easier, but through trial and error last year, kind of discovered that if you do them all together in the same workout, they kind of blur together. So that's neither here nor there. We just wanted to pull this workout back out because some people enjoyed it, and so that's why we did Syphylogeny this past week. And what gave me the initial thought to do this video, this Form First podcast, was a discussion that I was having with a newbie, or I don't know if this person was a newbie. I think it was this individual's second time going. And although this person didn't say it, I think that they really wanted to bypass the initiation process again. But I guess the point that I'm trying to convey with this newbie or second timer is that there is a method to our madness. All the pros at your locations know that, if it's your first time in a while, that we're going to have to kind of reconnect those gaps, or those, I guess, synapses that'll help you recall the tasks that you maybe have once learned, or maybe new. Initiation's gone through a little bit of metamorphosis the past year, so it's going to be a little bit different. And we also don't want to thrust you into a workout that is a little bit more advanced, especially like Syphylogeny, because we don't want you to have a poor experience the first time you've come back in a long time. So at the end of the day, trust your pro, trust the owners at each location that, again, there's a method to our madness, and we're not trying to, isolate you into a different workout. We just want you to have the best experience possible that'll transition you into the regular workouts effectively. So that is, I guess, the first thing that made me want to do this podcast today and still share it with you, because it is so important. The other thing is slope. You'll notice that this workout has a slope of 0, and I had a number of questions both on site and on socials asking me, like, how is it 0, or why is there no slope? And I want to go over that a little bit in more detail. Now, the common answer we will give you if you ask us what a slope is, or what the slope is we will say that it's a score from 1 to 50 that explains how difficult or how the workout is based. And so the closer it is to 1, generally speaking, the more cardio exercises there are, or easier exercises there are, and the closer it is to 50, the more difficult the exercises are. So you're going to be doing things like your inchworms and Diablos and dragging the plate, pushing, crawling, that sort of stuff. And also, I guess the kind of canned, scripted answer that we give people is that the closer it is to 1, the lower the number, chances are you will score lower, and the higher the slope, chances are you will score higher. Now, the idea behind that is you're probably going to score lower on a lower slope because you have to condense more exercises in the same amount of time, in 1 hour. So you may have to do 100 exercises like today. Like, for instance, Bill, he did 99 exercises and scored under his average. Okay, and that's because it was a slope of 0. Now, if we threw a 50 at you, you should be able, hypothetically, to go at a slower pace and still score at or above your 30-day boulder. So that's the way I've been explaining it the last couple of days to people to kind of get the idea of what the slope is imagine that each day's workout is like a test that you would have like back in high school. And the slope is showing you the curve at which we're grading. Okay, so really what it is this variable that is somewhat concealed to, I guess, the general public, or like even the other pros and the members do not know exactly what the slope is, and it's a proprietary number that skews everybody's score based on kind of what exercises are put into a workout. So it's very tough for me to explain directly. I have to be a little bit vague to kind of veil some of the stuff that we do for your workouts. And having said that, the number of a slope can also be a negative number and can also be above 50. It's just that Goldilocks zone that I call it is between 1 and 50 that I kind of throw at you, because if it goes outside of 0 or below 0 or above 50, that's when scores get a little bit out of whack. So really, I've narrowed that to be between 1 and 50 for the sake, to make it easy to explain to folks, and to also kind of refine and, I guess, like focus in and narrow in on how to build an appropriate workout with the mathematics included. So slope is, I could talk forever about slope, but that's something else I wanted to hit upon. And now we're going to get into some of the things that came to mind when I was actually teaching the workout. I want to show you the differences, or the similarities in some cases, between some of these tasks. And you're going to see I'm going to get up in a second and I may be demonstrating some things. And this is at the point in time where I got to kind of watch the video, give commentary on the audio-less video and then try to explain what the heck it is I'm talking about. So bear with me and we'll get to it. Okay, at this point in time, if you're able to actually watch your monitor, you may be able to follow along a little bit easier, but you don't have to. I should be able to explain it through just my words. What we're doing here in this little segment is I'm highlighting the differences between Tyson, Alt Squonk, Kobold, and then also I move over to Trog and Tarrasque. And what I was explaining to people when doing Tyson, I was really kind of breaking down people's Tyson a little bit more than I usually would do. And so I was noticing that people who cannot do Tyson effectively in rotating 180 degrees and also turning their shoulders were also not doing Alt Squonk effectively and not doing Kobold. Kobold was not in this workout of Syphylogeny, but it's essentially the same thing. So here I get up, and what I'm trying to explain is essentially Tyson, and I'm coming at you, and I was teaching people they have to turn, you should be turning your entire shoulders and hips 180 degrees each time. A lot of people were just kind of punching the air and going too far. Like when I would say like 180 degrees, they're going too far. So I look like I'm miming right now, but what I'm doing is explaining, I am visualizing essentially a rope going straight through the center of the room, and I'm grabbing the rope. Granted, what we do is punch in Tyson, but I think it helps paint a picture of what it is we're trying to do in 180 degrees, pull the rope, pull the rope, pull the rope down the field. And I started explaining it that way not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, and that really clicked with people. Instead of going over rotating with the punch, we had too many people going 270 degrees all the way across their bodies, and their hips were turning fine, but their punches were kind of goofy, and or their shoulders were not turning effectively. Now what I'm doing here is showing you either Squonk or Kobold. I'm in that position. See my front toes pointed. I'm showing you an alternating Squonk. So the difference between, I guess, Tyson and alternating Squonk is Tyson, you're standing up tall, punching. Squonk, you don't punch. And then alternating Squonk, you kind of get like a little shuffle down the field on a jump. Now, Kobold is the exact same thing as an alternating Squonk, except you're not doing that little skip, hop, quick progression. I saw a lot of people doing Kobold thinking it was alternating Squonk and vice versa. And so I felt it was important to teach everybody while they were doing alternating Squonk that day, that hey, you can go faster on alternating Squonk. Just want to let you know the difference between Kobold and alternating Squonk is one's slow, and the other one you can get a little hop step into it. So I think it's important also that most people learn Kobold prior to doing alternating Squonk. Next, what I'm doing here, if you're watching the video, I start going into Trog and Tarrasque. And those are our two kind of jumping, touching, rotational jumps, if you will. And Tarrasque was the first one that I came up with. And it was designed essentially for baseball players. I was teaching them to bend down, field the ball, and then get in a throwing position quickly and getting turned so you can be in a ready stance to throw. And I think that's what I'm explaining here. And to throw. And I named Tarrasque because I didn't know what the name of that movement was. And Tarrasque is the one where we touch with both hands. And we always touch in front, okay, not to get off topic, but both Trog and Tarrasque, when we touch the ground, we want to touch with our lead hands, okay? The reason why we don't touch with our backhands is because we don't want to be going against momentum, reach back. It spells disaster for your back. So always touch and go with the momentum of the jump. That's why we touch in front. So again, Tarrasque is, I think I get up here and I show you. We're touching with both hands. So I'm not jumping obviously as far as I can go there. I'm just trying to stay in frame, but jump, and that's Trog right there. So Tarrasque is touching with both hands. Trog is touching with just one hand, your lead hand. And you'll notice Trog also doesn't have an extra squat that Tarrasque does. But the way that I remember Trog is because Trog has one hand, and there's an O in the spelling of Trog. Okay, so it's important to also know what Trog is, and I'm laughing right now because I'm watching myself and I know what I'm talking about now. Trog is short for troglodyte, and troglodyte is like a Neanderthal hunter-gatherer, like a primitive man, if you will. And so I shortened the name to Trog, and I envision that I'm like a hunter-gatherer, jumping, picking up like berries, throwing it in my sack, and continuing on. If that helps you remember Trog, that's good. If the O in Trog jogs your memory of one, that works just as well too. And Tarask is both. I was explaining earlier in the video that I named Tarask because I didn't really know what else to come up with like to name it for the movement. And it is, I Googled it. I Google searched mythological creatures. When I was coming up with Syphylogeny training, I often try to name exercises based on what it looked like. Didn't know what that looked like. Googled mythological creatures, and a three-headed monster came up. So that's what Tarask is, and that came first. So then I tried to come up with something that kind of sounded similar. Stumbled upon Trog, and hopefully those two kind of link together. Trog, Tarask, that they're in the same family, rotational jumps, and hopefully that helps somewhat. Next little segment here, I discuss the difference between your squat jump, rivets, junkie jump, and then rivets and croaking. So it's really 4 different exercises. In Syphylogeny training, our squat jump, the reason why we touch the ground, it's our first squatting jump that we had. We didn't come up with squat jumps, but we did kind of administer the touching of the ground. And here I'm demonstrating. Originally, it was just a normal squat jump. We thought people would get low enough and explode up. We also used to kind of have people, keep their hands like on their chest and touch with their elbows. But naturally, we're not getting low enough. So we wanted people to actually have dead hands, squat down low enough till your hands touch the ground, and then that was a good way to give us a gauge of how deep you're getting. A somewhat objective gauge, but still a gauge nonetheless. And so what I'm explaining here is how deep you should be getting, and then exploding up. But then I segue into junkie jump. The difference between a junkie jump and a squat jump is we're not touching the ground, and what we're doing is we're holding that squat, like iso squat, for a brief pause, like a second, and then explode up. Recruit as much power as you can upward and jump up as high as you can, and then sit right back down into that squat. So you're going to hold it, and really it's like, I guess you're going to hold it for maybe 8 to 10 seconds, and then you're also exploding upwards for 8 reps. Okay? So now what I'm doing is showing you what croaking is. Croaking was our first traveling jump where we touch the ground. Okay? Rivets, that task came after croaking. Okay? So that may help you remember that, okay, rivets is a stationary croaking. So we were teaching you how to do the proper croaking by showing you rivets. So when you do rivets, it is a standing, not stationary, but a standing squat jump where you do a jump forward, touch the ground by doing a squat, and then jump back and stand up tall. So it is like a broad jump where you're just jumping back and forth, always facing the same way. Now, croaking is you're just jumping down the field, touching every single time while your feet are wide, also known as a broad jump. And then we've got our other 3, jumps that we have in frogs, typhon, and croaking. But I'm not going to get into that right now because we do get to that in a later segment. But again, here, what I'm trying to explain, I believe, is I am explaining frogs, croaking, and typhon. Never mind. Frogs was the first jump that we had, that I came up with traveling. And it was supposed to be just a jump across the field, but it eventually turned into what you're seeing now. I call them little bunny foo-foos, where people were not doing like a broad jump. Okay? And then the next one we came up with was croaking, and then typhon came next. So what I was trying, like all of our tasks, a lot of our harder tasks get morphed into an easier task. Therefore, we have to break the 2 up and turn them into something else. So frogs started off as a broad jump, trying to get as far as you could. It turned into like an easier jump, so therefore we made frogs and turned our original frogs into croaking, if that makes sense. And then typhon's just in and out. People call it like hopscotch with a touch and a squat in the middle. But I guess the point in all that is we're trying to, like, we essentially have to evolve two different tasks and create two different tasks, like almost bully and not bully's not a good one. Trombone and plate shake. Originally, trombone is what plate shake was intended to be, but people were doing smaller reps, so we turned plate shake into what it is today and trombone into a full extension to show you the difference. Now, I go into detail, I think, explaining a little bit more on how to do, a proper squat, but that's pretty much the takeaway I want to make sure you guys get is that which ones you need to jump on. So, or which ones you need to touch on. You touch on squat jump, you touch on rivets, you touch on croaking. Okay, junkie jump you're not going to touch on. Make sure you hold it, stay low, briefly before exploding up. Frogs, don't touch. Croaking, touch every time. Typhon, you'll touch every other time. And I really focus on recruiting as much power as I can in that together phase, if you know what I'm talking about or you're seeing the screen on Typhon. I come together, explode up, use my hands, and really forcefully try to cover as much ground as I can when I come with my feet together on Typhon. So, all right, the next one we're going to get into is the difference between your shuffle, on guard, your crook, and a gremlin. So crook and gremlin are kind of two different things, and then shuffle and on guard are very much the same thing, but a slight difference. So shuffle, when you're doing a shuffle, it's like standard. You're standing up nice and tall. Your feet are parallel to one another, and I kind of explained this in the video if you're looking at it. Your feet are parallel, all right, and they should face that way as you're going down the field. Now, on guard is different. Your feet should be 90 degrees, okay? So I show you kind of with my hands what a 90 degree, what we're looking for, and it's important that you learn on guard because then you're going to learn your squonk feet, you're going to learn alternating squonk, Greco, boulder, Petra, all those exercises. So it's really important that you understand that we're not just being petty and making you do a different foot alignment just to make a slight difference. It's to teach you, hey, on guard feet or squonk feet, and then we can kind of teach you a different language, if you will, down the road and teach you how to do a proper, shuffle, on guard, or just show you the differences between different tasks that have different footwork. Okay, and so what I also kind of go into explaining, I don't even think I get up on this one and demonstrate, but shuffle and crook are essentially the same things. Your feet should be the same on a shuffle as it is on a crook, but crook you're going to get low, stay low, and move foot to foot. Maybe I do show you a demonstration because I called it crook because it's essentially the same thing as a baseball player leading off of, I guess it would be first base specifically, because what they do is they lead off from, they lead off from left to right, and they're leading towards second base like I'm doing right there. So I called it a crook because it's essentially they're stealing. A crook steals things, a robber, and he's getting ready to steal second base. So that's why I called it crook. Now what I'm explaining here is I'm staying low. That right there I just showed you, like 90 degrees, that's about as low as you can get. You don't have to get quite so low. You can be a little bit in between, as I'm doing on the video. I'm also explaining in the mothership, there is an orange line for gremlin and crook. I often try to stay lower than that orange line, like my eye level, just to make sure that I'm getting low enough. I kind of think it's a nice little mechanism for me to gauge myself. Now here, I'm showing you gremlin. Gremlin is not buzzard, but you're close enough. Like you're staying low, and you're walking forward, just kind of like gremlining down the field. And what I'm kind of going here with this part of the video is I'm explaining that when I teach initiation, I can always tell who I've taught initiation to, like months, if not years down the road, because they kind of waddle when they do a gremlin, but that's not really a part of it. You don't have to waddle like I do. You just can stay with your feet about shoulder width apart, walk forward, but just stay low. And we also have a reverse version of that as well. But, okay, so crook, you're going sideways, kind of creeping. I kind of explain, I like to look at the O's in crook, and I think of them as like binoculars almost. Like someone's kind of like a peeping Tom kind of like scoping out the area, they're a crook, or they're stealing a base. That should help you remember the difference on that. And I'm kind of explaining that with my hands there. But Gremlin, if you're someone that remembers the 80s, there was these series of movies with these little green goblin-y guys that were small, and gremlins. And that was the name of the movie. It was Gremlins. And so when I came up with that task, or that name for the movement of like a creeping forward crouch crawl, I just thought of it looked like a gremlin from back then. So that's why that's called Gremlin. But if you just remember crook and it's what that movement looks like, I think you'll know automatically what a gremlin is. Okay, so the last little differentiator that I kind of explain is the difference between your jackal and your jackalope. But it's important, and I think I'm explaining it here, that you remember that when I was coming up with the names for most of these exercises, I kind of had a couple different ways of naming them. The first way was, okay, what does this movement look like? I named it what it looked like. Then if I couldn't come up with it, like a good substitute or a name to address the movement, I would come up with, I would Google search it. Okay, mythological creatures, like a squonk. A squonk is a squirrel that lives in a squonk. I think a typhon's like a three-headed monster. Tarosk is something else. So I came up with, a substitute name for that. So when I was naming jackalope and jackal, I don't really know why I named it those. I think I just looked up a mythological creature and named it as such. But the other thing that this highlights is that often when I name a task, I try to name it similar sounding or with a similar root word, like jackalope or jackal, and then or I'll have it start with the same letter. And for some that may be confusing. For me, that's just the way my brain works. I'm like, same branch. Now that's not uniform, and I'm highlighting that fact right now. In Sight Viz Training, we have, I think, 6 or 7 different tasks with the root word jack in it, and it can be extremely misleading in this regard. So I'm saying this is probably the exception to those naming rules that I mentioned before. Jackal, I believe, was the very first one of the jacks that we had. But we have, jackal, jackalope, jackass, jackbox, slapjack, jumping jacks. There's got to be something else in there too. So what I'm saying is don't necessarily think that that's a hard and fast rule. 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to be right. So like your Rambo, rampant, rampage, razor, all those exercises, bulldog, bovine, bulldozer, those are all the same family as well. So what I'm trying to explain here in this video, I don't even think I get up and show you, but what helps me remember the difference between jackal and jackalope is the jackalope has an O in it, so there's one hand on it, just like your trog. Trog, O, one hand. It's spelled with an O, so you think one hand. And I think if you learn that or commit that to memory, O1, you'll know that both trog and jackalope is one, dragging, okay? And that's really it. That's what helps me, and that's, how I explain it to other people. But you know what? If you have any suggestions to any of the exercises that I kind of present here, and you have kind of like a go-to saying that kind of helps you remember what each task is, I would love to hear it. Put it in the comments below, or if you're on Facebook and you're watching this, send me a comment, and I'll start using it. I mean, anything that helps us deliver the message into how to effectively do a task and do it with proper form, all the better. So next time I come on here, hopefully I'll be with Joe Militello, possibly a guest, and we'll be back soon. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Bye.